welcome to the ninth episode of Back at the Ranch, Expedition Online's after show. I am your host, Danny Knaub. Here with me is the latest castaway, Qua. How are you doing today?
I'm doing all right.
Yeah? How are you feeling
Yeah.
now that you're out of the game and it's been a few days?
Um, I would like to be back in the game, but what can you do? I'm excited though to be able to vote on who gets to win this game at the end. So I'm excited to be a jury member.
For sure. I mean, obviously it's a huge testament to your game making merge and then making jury because not everyone gets to do that. And
Yeah.
this game has definitely been fairly crazy. So I'm really looking forward to hearing from you your thoughts because you were a big part of a lot of the insanity, which is fun as us for spectators to watch. But let's go all the way back to the beginning. How did it feel when you were chosen to be a part of the first season of the show?
It honestly felt pretty good because I wasn't sure I was gonna be able to get selected because I didn't think my audition tape was that good. But I guess they saw something and they brought me in it. So I was excited. And then I was also the third pick that of the entire show, so that felt pretty good as well.
Well, I was gonna say, so obviously we're all huge Survivor fans. So the fact that you
Yeah.
have these like the Survivor gods, you have Boston Rob, you have Tyson, handpicking both their parties. So Tyson chose you, and like you said, chose you fairly early. Like, what was that like?
It felt good being chosen by Tyson because he's one of my favorite character players. But going in, I was kind of hoping I would get picked on the Rob team because I thought Rob might have been able to get some better picks, but turned out Tyson got some pretty good picks in there. So I enjoy Tyson. It's great to be on his team.
I mean, like that's an understatement. You guys like swept the whole first half of the game. It's funny because I was talking to Rachel yesterday and she kind of said a similar thing where she was like, I was sort of hoping to be chosen by Rob, but then the Tyson team was just incredible and you guys were just, I mean, nonstop winning all these. So it's really cool, obviously, that first night because everyone's getting a chance to see each other's audition videos. You're being handpicked by Rob and Tyson. So, what are your first thoughts in general about your whole party?
My first thoughts, I wasn't too excited to be honest because the people that Tyson chose, I wasn't a big fan of what first impressions. I thought Taryn was a bit extra. Andrea's video kind of didn't show her too much. So I wasn't really feeling it to be honest. Yeah. And then Rachel was a bit odd to me as well in her video. So first impressions not the best for me.
Well, first of all, I love your honesty. So thank you so much. Okay, so you're not vibing really with your whole party. So what is your sort of strategy? Because obviously that first night, you essentially had like 2 hours to video call each other. But because you all kept winning, like just what was your strategy in those early days? Like who were you, once you got to know everybody, who were you really like aligning with? Who were you sort of like not feeling, like what were you thinking long term?
So long term, I knew that my social game probably might not be the best because I don't like meeting new people. I don't like talking to people. And then especially since I was just younger, it's just harder since I don't have the life experience other people had. So that was my biggest concern going in. But right off the bat, I really liked Tom, I liked Kimmy, and I liked Alex. So those were the people I were mainly vibing with. But then I saw like some people just didn't fit in, and I thought I might be able to work with them. But then we just kept winning, and it was hard to see where everyone was, hard to see what the game was like. So that that wasn't the best winning every challenge, but it was also like good as well.
Well, it's funny that you say that because, again, I was talking to Rachel about this last night. Like when you watch the show and you just see a tribe that's like decimating everybody, you're always like looking at your screen being like, just stay together. Like this can be easy for you, but it almost never works because there starts to be infighting. There you start to get those cracks forming. So in those early days, even though you were winning, did you have a clear sort of like this person's on the bottom, that's who we're all going to vote for, that person might be next? Was there any kind of that order?
So I thought it was clear that Andrea was gonna be the first to go because she was on her phone, so that the internet connection's not the best there. And then on the first day after we were picked, she took a long time to get on, And so she missed out on the initial like bond forming relationship part,
Okay.
as well as for the challenges, we didn't see her as the best. So I thought she was going to be the first to go. But then I talked to Tom yesterday, and Tom said that he was trying to get Docs out first, which I wasn't a big fan of. But I guess that's where his head was at. My head was trying to get Andrea out.
Interesting. Well, it's two different strategies because you have Docs who seem to be a very clear leader. You all chose him as the leader in that first challenge.
Yeah,
And then you have someone like Andrea who wasn't as great in challenges, was sitting out more of the time and wasn't as social. So it's sort of like, just two different strategies for sure. And obviously, I'm sure, well, you were watching live because we were not texting, but we were messaging on the chat boards last night. So Docs was clearly a little bit in trouble. He got some votes against him. So people are picking up on his leadership ability. So those early days, it's pretty not dramatic because you guys kept winning. But on day 2, I believe it was, you all won the challenge, go back to base camp, and you see that there is a clue. Tell me about discovering the clue. Tell me about, because obviously you found it. Like, spoiler alert,
yeah.
the Qua found it. So just tell me, like, how hard was it? How did you, like, what were you thinking?
So I actually saw the voice channel was called the Lean Clue when it was previously the Lean 2. And so I saw that at first. I didn't think too much of it, but then I saw people start going in there. I saw Tom, Kimmy, Andrea go in. And then I was like, 3 people already went in before me. I didn't want to go in there. I didn't want to get that target. And so I just kind of like, well, I guess I'm not getting it. But then Andrea comes back and shared it with me. And then I was like, okay, so now I actually do have the clue. I didn't catch the entire thing at first, so I just asked her to repeat it. She repeated it a second time, and then I just found it. It was pretty easy. So that's basically how it went. Yeah, I didn't want to get the clue myself, but she shared it with me, so I got lucky there. Caught a break.
Well, and that proves to be a really smart strategy because I think for a while you were able to pull it off that you didn't have it. Because I think a lot of
Yeah,
people were pointing fingers. You were doing a really good job of pointing fingers to other people. Like, weren't you trying to, I think, put it on Kimmy a little bit, I believe, correct?
yeah. So I was just trying to put it on the people who actually went in the room and got the clue themselves, and that was pretty easy because I never went in there. So
Yeah, no, I love that strategy. So, what were you thinking when you had it? Were you wanting to tell anybody? Were you like, I'm keeping this to myself the whole time?
so I don't know if anyone knows this, but I was actually so Andrea shared the clue with me, Docs, and Alex, and then I found it in like a minute or two, and I was actually about to share it with them that I found it to try to build that trust we had. But then I think Rachel or Taryn joined the room right as I said Andrea, and I was about to share it. So then I just shut off and I didn't share it with them because someone else joined the room.
Oh, that's so cool. I didn't know that. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
It's so fascinating with this game because it does feel like the real Survivor in certain ways because you really have to take advantage of any alone time you get. So if you have time with somebody, it's sort of like quickly before anybody comes back. So that's
exactly.
cool that you had to kind of navigate that for sure. So okay, so things are pretty easy for Team Tyson. Then we have the big swap. So we have a big swap at 14. We're swapping to 2 parties of 7, and this feels like maybe the first time that you're not in such a great position because obviously the new Team Tyson consists of you, Andrea, and Docs from your original Team Rob. Or sorry, from Team Tyson, and then you bring in Sam, Jake, Owie, and Jess. So now you have a 3 to 4. It's not in your favor. What are you thinking during the swap?
So after the swap, I thought I was screwed. I thought it was 4 Robs, 3 Tysons. I thought I was screwed. So I was trying to do whatever I could to get it off of me and onto anyone else. But it was never actually on me for some reason. I got, I don't know, Jake came to me in docs and was trying to get Sam out because Jake got screwed in his previous crossroads.
Yeah.
And then I was telling the team Robs to try to go after Andrea because she's pretty weak. And we weren't sure how long these swap tribes were going to stay or teams until the rendezvous.
Yeah.
So I was just throwing everyone's name out.
Well, and so I would love just your perspective on this crossroads because it was pretty crazy because you had, obviously both parties were going to crossroads. So both parties were going to lose somebody, which meant that Team Rob, having won that challenge, was actually able to watch your crossroads. And you had Brandon, who was making really good use of his dry erase board. And there was a lot of just sort of finger pointing. And I know that, is this when you played your idol or played your
Yeah,
cover?
this was when I played it.
So, so obviously you incorrectly played it, but how much did Brandon's white dry erase board come into play and kind of mess with you? And like, what were you not trusting that you ended up playing it, even though you actually successfully got everyone to sort of flip onto Andrea?
So before we went into Crossroads, Sam told me that my name didn't come up at all and that they weren't voting for me. And I believe Sam there. We went to Crossroads. Brandon's whiteboard, it kind of spooked me a bit, but I think I would have been fine until Owie talked to Andrea if Andrea was able to write my name down. And that's kind of what threw me in for the loop because previously it was just Brandon who never met me, but he felt like I was strong enough that he needed out. And so I thought if Brandon, who's never met me, these guys already talked to me for a while, they might be able to lean onto his idea. They might go with that. And then on top of Owie throwing my name out, then I just decided I'm not going home with this. I'm just gonna play it here. And so that's basically me. I'm kind of trigger happy, rather play it than not. So
Well, hey, I mean, that's the thing is like, I mean, this game is a game. So you have to take big risks sometimes. And, you know, if you have it and you're feeling not safe, it's like you might as well know for a fact that you're
yeah.
safe. But that crossroads ends up burning two compasses, I believe. So we have two out, although Andrea does go home, and then Brandon on the other tribe goes home. So everything is feeling okay. So then talk to me the next day is the can challenge. And it's essentially Jake is the one who wins exemption. Kimmy gets to sort of choose giving a reward. You all spin a wheel. So now two people are exempt. You have Docs who's exempt as well as Jacob. What was going into this vote? Because obviously, you know, Rachel was an original team Tyson member. So I think from the standpoint of the viewers, you would think that you guys have numbers, guaranteed safety. Why don't you pick off team Rob? But you guys just decided to go a different direction. So how did that vote sort of come about?
So this vote on Rachel, it it went as planned. Rachel was gonna get the votes. It kind of happened because of the previous vote where I got Andrea out. I felt that I could work with the previous team Robs, Sam, Jess, and Owie. I thought I could work better with them than Andrea, and I thought I could use them to help pick off my former team.
Hmm.
And then it also helped build my trust with Docs because Docs really wanted Tom out. And I told Docs, now's not the time to get Tom out. We can get Rachel instead if you really want. And so Rachel kind of helped weaken Tom. And then it also helped to build me with Docs. But at this specific vote, I personally felt that we needed a Tyson out. And so Rachel had to go. I thought the Robs they could go whenever and so keep them around, but Tyson's got to go just in case any of them's trying to do something.
So explain to me a little bit more about that because I'm curious to see how you felt that Rachel was a bigger target than Tom was. Like I'm just kind of curious as to why Rachel over Tom.
So Rachel, I don't think necessarily was a bigger target than Tom, but I felt that I would be able to work with Tom later. That's why I wanted Tom still in the game. For the same reason I voted out Andrea rather than Sam, I felt that I could use Sam later than Andrea. So that was more my reasoning for Rachel.
Okay. No, I totally get that. And so this is another example of a pretty crazy crossroads. It felt watching that Tom and Rachel sort of at the same time were like, bing, like something is not feeling good here. I think one of us is going out. The quote I actually wrote down because it was when I thought, okay, Tom really figured it out. Tom said, the minority seems real comfortable because they did. Like nobody in the original Team Rob felt like they were sweating. So Rachel gets pretty explosive in this crossroads. Is that help lean any votes, or is everything that the plan was set to be actually what happens?
So so Rachel was gonna go home anyways, I think, but her outburst helped play it off as it wasn't originally her, but she just happened to do that. And so I think afterwards I talked to Tom, and I think he understood that it might not have been her, but she kind of played herself. So I think her outburst kind of helped disguise the fact that she was already going to go home.
Totally. I mean, I see that. And
Yeah,
it's interesting too, because what's fascinating about this game, and now you're in the jury as well, is that everybody that you vote out, well, at a certain point, then have to choose a winner. So it's sort of like
exactly.
trying to do jury maintenance, but it felt like, it seems like she kind of pinpointed a lot of that on you. Do you think that you were the ringleader in the getting Rachel out, or do you think that it was a group consensus?
So I believe that I was pushing for her to get out, but I thought she pinned it on Kimmy. I thought she was attacking Kimmy on her vote out, and she actually said that she never did any wrong to me. And so I tried to tell her that it was originally going to be Owie, and but I thought she said that she was trying to get me to vote with her because she thought she never wronged me.
For sure. So Rachel sadly goes home, and then the next one is my favorite challenge, scavenger hunt challenge. Did you have fun with that? Like that is.
Wait, sorry.
Oh, I'm saying the next day is the scavenger hunt challenge, and did you just have as much fun as that's like a staple in this community and like everybody's favorite challenge to play and to watch. So like, what did you think of that challenge in general?
Yeah, so I really like that challenge. That was my favorite challenge. I thought I was going to do pretty well in it because my apartment's kind of compact. Everything's kind of close together. So I was rolling until grass, and then I was on the fourth floor. I'm not getting grass. So that was what got me. But I mean, I have a pillow right here. I have an umbrella like right underneath me. So I was gonna be okay if I made it past grass.
Damn that grass, damn that grass.
Yeah.
So Docs wins exemption, and you all vote out another OG Team Tyson. So what is the reasoning here for getting out Tom?
So I think this was when I kind of thought that I was in trouble because I didn't want Tom out. I thought that we could keep Tom. I really wanted Jake out here because ever since I met him, he's kind of been wishy-washy. I could never really tell where he was going. And so that's not someone that I personally can work with. And so I was trying to push for Jake rather than Tom, but Alex, Docs, everyone just wanted Tom out. And so I just couldn't really swing it. And that's when it kind of clicked like, if I can't get these people to where I want to vote, that could cause me trouble.
Yeah.
Tom vote at all.
No, for sure. I mean, that's a good sign because if you're, like you're saying, if you're unable to really get a grasp on or grip on like what's happening and be able to change people's minds, it's kind of clear that there's a lot of other people making decisions. And if you're not part of that, it signals that you might be in trouble down the road, which is what ends up happening. So the next one we have stacking coins under butter knife, the most random games and skills that we have to do. Challenge Beast Kimmy yet again wins, which is, more power to her. I mean, this girl is like kicking some, butt in these challenges. So this is another big crossroads because it felt like, and this is, I'm like actually super excited to talk to you because I was modding pretty heavily that day. And I remember watching you and I was like, you were jumping into different rooms and you even said, you're like, I think Jess has the compass and I think that Jess is going to play the compass on Oe. I feel like you said that at some point. And so you all come up with this like number thing of like 1 means this person, 3 means this person, 4 means that person. And so you go into crossroads. And I remember thinking like, I was waiting for somebody to say a number and no one said a number. And so you all ended up voting out Oe or voting for Oe and just played her compass. So like, what were you just second guessing yourself? Because I felt, I was like, oh my God, Qua's like tuned in. Like he knows exactly what is happening.
So this was yeah, it was obvious. Everyone and their mother knew that they were gonna play the compass. Like Jess was kind of poking around, so I was leaning more towards Jess having it than Oe or Sam. But it was also Jake. I wasn't sure if Jake was voting for us, so that's why I didn't want to split the votes because I wasn't sure. If I knew for sure Jake was voting on Oe, then sure we could split the votes, but I wasn't sure on him. And then it was a mix of I didn't want to be the guy who was controlling everything. So I didn't want to just say, no, we're not voting for Owie, we're voting for Jess. So that was my mistake, I guess. I wasn't pushing for it hard enough. I didn't want to be that guy who was telling everyone what to do. And then also, I just thought more people would realize it, but Owie knew, Jess knew, everyone knew we were voting for Owie. I thought it was pretty obvious, but I don't know. I guess they thought even if they do play the compass on Owie, it wasn't going to be them. And so maybe that's why. But every time I brought up the Jess vote, Alex and Docs, they would shut it down hard. So I don't know.
Well, I mean, that's what is interesting about this game because it's really split decisions. You guys don't have a lot of time between the challenges and the crossroads to, really talk too much, and you don't have a lot of private rooms to really discuss things. So, you're really relying on people listening to you. But I just remember watching that and being like, oh my God, Kawhi's like spot on. Like he knew exactly what was happening. And I thought it was risky because I thought you were sort of I mean, I feel like you were just saying to Owie, like, yeah, we're voting for you. Like, you're gonna be going. So, yeah. I mean, so so just plays the compass for Owie. Are you thinking it's me, or do you think that the votes were going to be on somebody else?
Yeah. So I told Jess that we were voting for Owie because I didn't think we were going to vote for Owie.
For a number, I was like, wait, no one's
Yeah.
number.
So I told Alex before we went into Crossroads, I wasn't going to give the audible. And then I disconnected right before we voted. I came back in and we were voting. It's like, all right, so I'm screwed here. But I wasn't planning on giving the audible. In theory, I probably should have, but I didn't want to be the guy again to be throwing all the directions around. So that was it. And then what was the other question? I forgot. Sorry.
I was just saying that once the compass was actually played for Owie,
Oh yeah.
were you like, I'm done for, or did you think that it was actually going to be somebody else?
So I was trying to push it just in case they had it. I was trying to push it onto Alex, but I wasn't really trying too hard because again, I didn't think we were actually going to vote for Owie. So I tried to tell Jess, Owie, and Sam, hey, vote for Alex. She's like tight with Kimmy, but I didn't try too hard. I knew they didn't believe me. So as soon as Jess played it, I knew it was me.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you end up getting voted out 2-0 because it was just you that got votes and Owie that got votes. So sort of final question here is that now that you're out in the jury, who at this moment do you think is playing the best game? And second question, who are you personally rooting for? It can be the same person or it could be different people.
So it's hard because as soon as I got voted out, Sam got voted out as well, and I was kind of hoping Sam could make it pretty far, but he kind of got screwed with the double crossroads there.
Yep.
The person with the best game, I'm not entirely sure if there is, because Alex and Kimmy and all of them, they didn't listen to me, and so that makes me wonder why they wanted to work with me if they're not going to listen to what I say. And then Jess, sure, she played the compass, but anyone was going to be able to play that. Like we were telling them who we were voting for, so that was kind of a freebie for her. So I'm not entirely too sure. I am leaning towards Kimmy and Alex
Okay.
right now as in pretty well, but I am rooting for Jordan to win.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. And why Jordan?
I just I'm not entirely sure. I think he's a really likable guy. He's confident in his game enough to leave every time, so he's not around too much. I don't know. I don't know why I'm rooting for Jordan, but I am. I find it hard for me. It depends on who he's up against, It always depends on that. But I'm not voting for Taryn. I'm not voting for Jake. I don't see Owie or Jess making it very far. And then Alex and Docs, they hard shut me down on the Jess vote, got me out. So kind of find it hard to vote for them. I don't know. It really depends on who Jordan's up against and if he can sell it. But I like Jordan.
Okay. Well, I guess
Yeah.
we're going to see because, I think we have maybe another week left in the game. The time is flying. I can't believe how many people have already interviewed for this. But do you have any final thoughts or any final, did you overall enjoy your experience with the expedition?
Yeah, I really enjoyed the experience. It was a lot of fun. I really like the strategy involved in it, and I kind of enjoyed meeting these people, but it was all right.
Just kind of.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so funny. Well, I always say to everyone on this that there is another side to this game. You know, there's a fun side where a lot of us are a big community. We've all been spending the last few months getting to know each other and talk. So I hope that I'll get to see more of you in that part of the community. But otherwise, Qua, thank you so much for joining me today, and I look forward
Yeah.
to seeing who you vote for at the end, whether it's Jordan or if it's somebody else. But for everyone who's watching out there, we still have a lot of gameplay to go. And if the last few Crossroads have showed anything, is that it's really anybody's game at this point. And I think it's going to be a lot more blindsides and it should be a lot more excitement. So thanks to everyone for tuning in. Qua, again, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And everyone have a good rest of your day. Hey everyone, welcome to the 10th episode of Back at the Ranch, Expedition Online's after show. I'm your host, Danny Knaub, welcoming our latest explorer, Sam. Welcome, how are you?
Doing all right. I wish I could be still playing as we go along, but this is a close second. Great spot to be otherwise.
Yeah, I mean, so you were voted out just a few days ago. How are you handling being out? Are you sort of relieved? Are you upset? You were kind of mentioning running scenarios through your head.
Yeah, it's a little bit of all emotions, really. First night, it was, kind of just not shock. I shouldn't say that. The writing was on the wall for me. But just like, oh my God, I'm not going to be spending all of these hours playing this game, which was so much fun. Getting a little bit of time back in my evenings is a nice consolation prize, but I would be lying if I said, it comes around 4 o'clock Central Time here and I'm like, all right, I should be logging in. Let's go play the game. Let's go strategize. So I miss it, and I'm relieved that I'm out both at the same time.
I get it, yeah. So let's go all the way back to the beginning. So tell me how it felt to be chosen to partake in the very first season of Expedition Online.
Oh, super fun. I mean, this was all kind of done on a whim. I can't even remember how I came across the written application, but I was like, yeah, why not? Let's put an application in and just see where this goes. And then the next thing you know, I'm putting in a video. Next thing you know, I'm getting a call, and it just kind of snowballed from there, which was super fun. My wife and I were jumping for joy, celebrating. She helped put together my video pretty heavily. She was heavy in the editing process, so we were both super stoked that it all turned out.
It was definitely one of the more memorable videos because I can remember it just was super funny, well done. Is your wife a Survivor fan?
Oh yeah, I just I came over to do this, and we're in the middle of watching Game Changers right now. So we've definitely spent a lot of quarantine watching Survivor.
Do you think she might try out for Expedition Season 2?
I don't know. That could be a hard sell. She's more introverted than I am. I'm more of the let's go meet new people. She's more of the let's hang out on the couch with the dog.
I get it. So obviously, as a Survivor fan, we have like two Survivor gods essentially. So we have Boston Rob, Tyson, who are participating and helping with this whole process. So you obviously log in that first night. They're live choosing their team. So what's it like having like the Boston Rob choose you to be part of his team?
Well, he knows who I am as a person, which is crazy. I mean, that's a prize in and of itself. And no offense to Tyson, I was definitely hoping to be on Team Rob. Like you said, you remember my video, my wife was wearing her Mariano construction shirt in the video. So that was who we were rooting for. It was, close. It didn't really matter, but it was awesome to be on Team Rob. And yeah, it was just so surreal. I wish the sound was working on my video because I think there was a little bit of sound bites that they may have missed, but that's technical difficulties and what happens when an entire game is run online.
There you go. Well, everyone who exits the game at some point will get to see all the footage. So everyone tune in and make sure that you check out his video again. So that first night had to have been a blur. I mean, they're both picking their teams. So once your party is chosen, what is your sort of like initial thought on your party as a whole? Was there anybody you gravitated to? Was there anybody like, I'm going to work with that person, I'm not working with that person? Like, what were your just overall thoughts?
Yeah, overall thoughts were, so I was taking notes on every single person, just very brief, 1 to 2 words on everybody. And looking at my team, I was like, okay, this seems like a good team, a mix of, book smart, street smart, and people that looked like they could be physical people, that you could tell where they were going to be, whatever push-up challenges, whatever have you. Like we had a very well-rounded team, I think, when it first started off. I saw Bobby, and Bobby and I definitely connected, I think, night one. If I'm not mistaken, we were the first two on Team Rob to actually branch out and not stick in one room and go talk just one-on-one. And so yeah, Bobby and I had a really good relationship. Brandon and I took a little bit longer to cultivate. I think both of us saw each other as young, fit males that, you know, could connect at some point, and it just kind of getting pushed down the line. We knew we'd connect eventually. It took a little longer, but overall, I really liked my team. I mean, I'm sure we'll get into this. It really sucks that we lost all the first 4 or 5 challenges and had to just keep getting rid of each other one by one, because I think it would have been awesome to continue to grow with these people.
Yeah, I mean, let's just jump right in. I mean, you literally
Why not?
lose
Let's
the
twist
first
the knife.
challenges. You know, I mean, talking to everybody who has since been voted out, and I've done these interviews with everybody, it felt like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it felt like with Trey and Teresa that those were pretty easy choices, that they didn't stay, they didn't really connect and bond on that first night or make those connections. I know Bobby sort of had a family thing come up and sort of asked everybody to vote him out. But I mean, yeah, is there anything to add? I mean, it felt like those were, for lack of a better word, like easy votes. But I mean, what were your thoughts behind
Yeah, they were easy in the fact, like you said, the first night they just didn't bond with us. And you hinted at it before, that first night is a blur, but what you do remember is people that left early. You know, that is kind of the first night of staying online and talking. And it continued throughout the whole game, but that first night is just totally crucial. That's when you need to spend some time with people. If the room was open for another 2 hours, I'm sure most of us would have stayed on and just not wanted to be the first ones to go to bed. So it was huge. And those first few votes were the Bobby one sucked, but family obviously comes first in this situation. So we all had the utmost respect for him in that situation too.
Yeah. So I know that on the second vote, you learn of a lean clue, essentially. And so your whole party kind of is frantically racing to try to find this. Did you search for it? Were you close to it? Did you know who had it before it was revealed?
So I had the hardest time. I lied on my application and said I was familiar with Discord. That was a lie. I literally was not kidding when I told people it took me about 3 to 4 minutes just to figure out how to message Andy to get the clue. So I was way behind. I think somebody probably already had it by that point. I did not know Molly was the one to find it though. I was assuming Jake, I believe. And there were a couple names being thrown out. Trey was definitely a big name thrown out because he does seem like he really gets this game. I think he's played similar games to this before. So he was high on the list of that as well, but definitely not me. Not even close into finding that thing.
So when Molly eventually owns up to it, and you know, this is a little, there's been a lot of talk amongst the mods and different chats about, you know, specifically Brandon's approach, and it felt like you all were sort of like ganging up on Molly a little bit to be like, give it up, like trade, like prove your loyalty, do this. So she ends up giving it away. She gives it to Jake. Are you in disbelief that that plan worked? Are you like, what are you thinking? Because obviously y'all wanted it to go to Oe, but it went to Jake. But so you guys were still a little upset that it didn't go completely according to plan. But what were you thinking with that? I mean, because that was, we were all shocked that it happened.
Yeah, so I was a little early on the plan of knowing that we needed her to just own up to having it. I think Brandon and I did speak about, you know, let's just confront her in front of everybody to see if she has it, you know, not even to start that give it up ploy. I was very late to finding out that she was giving it up. Once I did hear that, I did expect it to go to either Brandon or Oe. And early on in the game, I think there was me and Oe were tight, Jess and Brandon were tight, and we four were going to kind of hopefully run the game a little bit longer than we obviously did. But I remember sitting in the lean-to, somebody hopped in, I believe it was Oe, and she said, she's willing to give it up. She's going to give it up to me. I'm going to get this thing from her. And I was in utter disbelief. And then suddenly 5 minutes go by or however many minutes, and now it's in Jake's hands. And I was super confused. And I think that's what started playing into me wanting to target Jake a little bit. And that's obviously something that we can probably get into next with Oe and I's rash decision to do that now.
Let's go right there now. Yeah. I mean, so obviously in the ping pong relay, your team loses again.
What do you
And
know?
so it's sort of between, it seems like Molly and Jake. However, Oe won a spectator vote, meaning that she was allowed to choose 2 people to have like the final conversation alone before everyone went to Crossroads. She had like 15 seconds to decide, and she chooses you. So you two go to a separate room and go from there.
So that almost feels like, as I'm rewatching Survivor, that feels like a season 1 or 2 move to, just choose your closest ally, go to the other room. I think if we had more time to think about it, if this was more of an advanced game, she would have known probably to send Jake and Molly or Jake and Brandon, other people, anybody else. I kind of knew she was going to choose me, which could have turned out well. I think in my ever-present optimistic brain, I was really thinking that we had either Brandon or Jess to roll with us there. But yeah, when we were put in that room, if people were watching that, it was hectic. I mean, we did not know what to do. My hands were shaking. I did not know if we really should, go for the big move or just play it safe and get Molly out of the game. But this is only going to last 3 weeks tops. I need to start building that resume. I figured, why not? Let's go for a big move. I think it, in the end of the day, was what kind of killed my game long run, but I'm still glad I did it. I mean, I'd rather do that than go out just going with the flow the whole time.
Well, it's interesting because obviously you didn't have an opportunity to speak to Brandon and Jess and kind of fill them in on what this plan was. But you sort of had opportunities because the vote goes 3 Molly, 3 Jake. So you're at a tie. So then you go to revote. And then it's again 2 Molly, 2 Jake. So was there a part of you that wanted to fight more with Brandon and Jess and be like, this makes more sense? Or did you actually believe that Jake would use the compass as like a group compass? Because that's what it felt like the reason you all kept him. Is what it kind of
Yeah.
looked like, but I wasn't sure if that's what you were thinking.
Yeah, that was definitely on the brain. I think, especially us keeping him, he reacts to whatever you kind of tell him. And I think all of us were then saying, like, let's get rid of Molly here. We'll go through 5 strong. It really didn't seem like Brandon was going to budge. I think that was the biggest thing that we missed in the shelter when everything apparently went down. Brandon just seemed like he was like, no, Jake, I said, I'm not voting for you. And I'm not going to vote for you. So he was staying straight. Jess, I don't think would have jumped at that point either. And I think Owie and I were just the ones that were more likely to budge at that point.
Yeah.
So between that and the fact that I do think we could have reeled Jake in, which we kind of did after he voted for me in the next vote out, it worked out well for a little bit anyway.
Yeah. So again, you guys were decimated. I mean, I think you literally went to every single crossroads, correct?
Yep, and I was never exempt. I was literally watching, and somebody wanted an immunity necklace, and I was like, "Man, what does that even feel like?"
Would not even know exactly. So then we go into a swap, and lo and behold, it actually works out in your favor. So in terms of Team Rob remaining, it's Sam, Jake, Owie, and Jess. So you now have the majority against 3 former Team Tyson, Docs, Andrea, Qua. And then Team Rob now gets 6 original Team Tyson, and then the lone Brandon, who swap screwed, essentially. So at this swap, what are you thinking? Are you finally like, we finally have majority? Or like, what is going through your head at that point?
Yeah, so I feel great about it because I know Jess and Owie and I are very close, especially me and Owie. But to that point, I hadn't talked to Jess as much, but we definitely got to bond a lot more on new Team Tyson. Jake was still a wild card in my head, but I knew ultimately he probably would play it safe and we'd play with the numbers. So ultimately it felt pretty good. And knowing after Team Tyson all drew their new tribes that I was the first one to draw the next tribe, so many of them were on Team Rob already. It really looked like it was going to play in my favor. It was very hectic. I will not lie, though. That was probably one of the top most nervous points in the game for me, honestly, just not knowing how it was going to play out. But like you said, luckily it came out in my favor for a little bit anyway.
Exactly. So then we go into the challenge where you have a book on top of your head and you're balancing a cup. And lo and behold, you don't realize this, but you're actually playing for individual exemption because it's going to be a double crossroads that we surprised everybody. You did fairly well. Yeah, you did fairly well. You were you got like 5th place in that, lasted close to an hour, which is insane. I mean, that's incredible. So kudos to you. So obviously though, your party lost. So you got to go to crossroads first. Then because of that, the other party now got to watch it. And so I want to hear from your point of view, because from like a spectator point of view, this was nuts because you had Brandon who clearly knew he was going home, and Jake had essentially promised that the compass would be a group compass to save him. And he's using his whiteboard like it is going out of style. I mean, he has thrown up phrases and words and like, look at me, look at me. So what are you all thinking at this point? Because obviously Andrea goes. We'll get to that in a second. But in terms of the Brandon portion, were you encouraging Jake to send the compass? Was Jake considering it at all? What were you all thinking?
Yeah, so going into the pre-swap, I think we all knew that we could use it as a team thing, but our big conversation was if it's one person alone, that person's just a dead knocking. You know, even if we did give it to him, not knowing the merge was coming up, of course, but we were kind of assuming there was going to be one or two, maybe even votes after that. And he would really have had to fight to the death for it. I think ultimately in the long game, it was smarter to keep it. I definitely don't discredit Jake for not giving it up. I think it was better off saved, but what can you do? I think Brandon's game, like you said, he was swap screwed. He wasn't going to get out of that, I don't think.
Yeah. So then why Andrea?
We, again, thought we may have a couple tribe challenges with this new tribe, and we just wanted to keep the strongest tribe together. And that's obviously no offense to Andrea. I think last night's challenge, I believe it was in the game, was a very cerebral challenge. I think she could have killed any of those challenges. We were just nervous and wanted to keep the tribe strong for any challenges because frankly, the 4 original Team Rob people were sick of losing and wanted to get on the winning track for once.
Yeah, seriously. So then going into the next challenge, it's interesting because Jacob wins this challenge, and Kimmy's allowed to, because she ends up giving back her money or splitting her money. So she ends up getting to spin a wheel, and a second person gets exemption. So then you have Docs who gets exemption. So this is interesting because, again, at this point you now have merged. So I think that's a shock too. So I want to know your thoughts on the merge being that soon after a swap. So why don't we just start with that? Like, what were you thinking knowing your swap or that you're merged? Because you're sort of low on numbers.
Yes, definitely low on numbers. And we were hoping that the original Team Tyson could have ate some of their own before that. So I wish we could have done a couple more challenges together. But, you know, step one, I think, in any Survivor fan or Expedition Online fan anyway, is make the merge. I think that's always, you know, on your checklist of things you need to do, make the merge is one, get on the jury. So, you know what, small goals that I've accomplished. But yeah, going into the merge felt okay. I think we knew that we were kind of playing with house money there. We could tell anybody anything because we were going to get voted out. So what's the worst case scenario? We just, you know, I think we went in guns blazing, and luckily a lot of people from original Team Tyson were willing to work with us. I mean, I hopped in a room with Alex straight away, and I think before I even prompted her, she was like, I like you. I want to play the game. Let's do something. Let's make something happen. So we were stoked. I mean, I think all Team Rob originals were very stoked when we did go into the merge and heard so many positive reactions to let's change this game up a little bit.
For sure. I mean, because obviously I think that your OG Team Rob was super solid at that point. Because I think you guys had gone through so much together that the 4 of you were, you know, sort of like ride or die in a way. Obviously, I think Jake sort of started to like ease his way out a little bit. But so whose decision was it to get Rachel? And I know that this was another sort of explosive crossroads, but is there somebody that you felt was leading that charge? Was it someone on your side, or was it more on the OG Team Tyson that was leading that?
Yeah, so I think new Team Tyson kind of talked about who we think we could go and first off, who we could go and get to flip a little bit on their tribe. Quan and Docs definitely thought Alex and Kimmy were a couple potential flippers. In terms of getting Rachel, I think we kind of all had the idea to go for it. I think I might have voiced it first even because Tom was kind of an obvious target. I think we wanted to make sure that he didn't have his fingers in too deep with everybody, that somebody may play an advantage for him or whatnot. So I think going after second in command would have been the smart thing to do. So Rachel was kind of the target that we all started throwing around there. And it worked out, thankfully. Looking back, even tonight, I was kind of thinking about it. And Tom and I have done a couple things since the game. We've talked on Discord. We did an Instagram live on his tribal_council_blog. Tom, you're welcome for the plug. And we started talking, and I do think that's kind of where my game started to sink for the final time. I think if I could have gone into that, Rachel and Tom knew they were on the bottom. If original team Rob might have been able to flip them in a totally, alternate universe, that could have been the new 6. That could have been a little strong. But again, who knows how that actually would have worked. Team Tyson then still could have taken us out of the game. I think that is something I would have liked to entertain anyway, but Rachel went home that night in spectacular fashion.
Oh, she did indeed. She was fun to talk to. I talked to her last night, and she had a lot to say about that. No, I mean, it's interesting because it's hard. I mean, you're coming in knowing nothing about this group and sort of thrust into this merge. And again, the way that Expedition's set up is so fascinating because there's only so many rooms you can go to. So I think it's difficult to get one-on-one time. It's difficult to get like 3 time. It's difficult to say like, come into that room. It's hard to sort of, you really have to move super fast for it. So obviously looking back now, you're saying that you probably would have rather worked with Tom and Rachel, but at that moment when it was looking like Rachel was going to leave, and she does, of the OG Team Tyson, what were you thinking? Were you like, oh, I think that I can work with Qua? Or, was there anybody that you felt like you could maybe create sort of a new, larger alliance with?
Yeah, honestly, I had a lot of really good talks with Kimmy that night. And I definitely thought Kimmy and I would have had a good relationship going forward in the game. Alex also to a lesser extent, but again, had really great conversations with her. Docs and I had voted separately a couple votes in a row, but I did know that I, at that time anyway, kind of wanted to work with him because we did have the new Team Tyson alliance kind of going along. In terms of Qua, I knew he was a huge threat and wanted to work with him as long as I could until I needed to cut him loose because Tom said it on his exit. I think Qua, if he could have gotten even a little closer to the, would have ran with it and taken the whole thing.
Yeah. So I also meant in the last one that we talked about, I know that both compasses were burned at that point because I think everyone freaked out. Qua played his, Jake played his. Was there talk of them being replanted? Was there discussion of people looking? Because obviously we now know that Jess ended up having one. So did you know that? Did she fill you in?
So in the eventual tribal that she did play it, I actually did not know that she had it up until about 5 minutes before that, which props to her for hiding it. I had thought we had a good relationship, which I'm sure we still do. Jess was playing the fewer people that know, the better, which I totally respect. And, but yeah, she hid it from me that whole time. And I think there was always talk that there are advantages out there. They're definitely out there. We didn't know if one was replaced, both were replaced. All I knew, again, back to earlier in this conversation, is I probably wasn't going to find it. I again tried a little bit, just was not working out for me.
No. Andy has a way of hiding them. They're hard to find. They're really hard to find.
I mean, especially online, I don't even know where I would start with trying to hide him for an online game. He does a fantastic job with that.
Yeah, no, he does a really good job. So favorite challenge. This is like, I think, a Survivor favorite, fan favorite, the scavenger hunt. First of all, just was a fun, it's a fun challenge, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
For
yeah,
sure.
That was for sure fun.
Yeah. Docs has an umbrella like literally under his feet. So he wins that exemption. You all go. What are you thinking? Or is it like you all know that Tom has to go because he was sort of tied to Rachel? Were you trying to make anything different happen? Or were you just so happy that it still wasn't anybody from the OG Team Rob?
Yes, to that last point, 100%. I think at that point we were so decimated that it was just an eventuality. So every day that we could last was a good day. I had a lot of good conversations with Tom that night, actually. We were checking in about every 30 minutes, 45 minutes in a lean-to together just to see where our heads were at. He was trying to push me on the Qua vote, and I just knew the numbers weren't going to be there. Everybody was going to vote for Tom. This again goes back to the moment though, where I think if I was thinking 3-4 steps ahead instead of 1 or 2, it could have been a game-changing time to, really switch things up. I think Tom at that point was a free agent, would have gladly flipped on original Team Tyson because they had all voted for him or his number 2. So it could have worked out better, but a nice easy vote, and I got to live another day.
Exactly. Which gets us into the final day. So stacking coins over butter knife, which I'm like obsessed with just like the challenges and the names of them. So Kimmy wins this one. Kimmy is obviously proving to be quite a challenge beast for sure. So it's looking like Owi's gonna leave. I mean, I think they were even saying like, we're voting for Owi. I mean, I was modding a lot that day, and I felt like the OG people were really forthcoming with like, no, yep, it's going to be pretty much Owi tonight, which obviously helps. It helps Jess because she ends up making a power move. But what are you thinking here? Is this sort of when you figured out that the three of you are just on the outs and there's no cracks, or I mean, what are you thinking going into this vote?
Well, at that point, I still thought the four of us were out on the outside. I was still hoping, crossing my fingers, that Jake was with us. That was definitely the night, though, that it felt like he was starting to flip. And again, the night before, I had great conversations with Kimmy and Alex. I was really hoping that we could continue that and keep working the game. They all kind of just sat in the room together, though, and were set on that OE vote, which was fine. We were still, putting a lot of thoughts together, Jess, O, and I. We put the Qua thing in motion, hoping that we just have enough to get him out. I knew other people were threatened by him at the time as well. So threw that message out to as many people that would bite, hoping that it worked out. But it does bring us to a power move, which again, that's when I found out that Jess had the idol. It was literally, she told me about 5 minutes before, and then we hopped in a room just before Crossroads. She was asking me if she should play for OE or if it's a lost cause, if they're going to split the votes. I told her that we should definitely play it because it just seemed at that point that definitely the majority of votes, if not all the votes, were going on her, which to be frank, I was shocked that all of the votes were for her.
Yeah, especially because moderating that night, Qua was very vocal. I mean, Qua was very vocal that he's like, I think Jess has this compass. I think Jess is gonna play it for Oe. I think we should split the votes. And everyone was like, no, no. So I think Qua was like trying to say something, and it just was like, and nobody was listening to him. And so goes into the vote, and obviously all of Owi's votes are discarded, and Qua is voted out 2-0. So Qua learned his life lesson doing that.
Yep.
So it feels like you survived another day.
Oh man, and it felt so good, even with Andy's kind of, perpetual cloud hanging over all of us. I thought we were good to, have another 24 hours. I was really looking forward to then maybe talking to my people and starting to get a conversation going. Because I knew all of Team Tyson did want that one, sacrificial lamb from the Team Rob, just so they knew that we were willing to, play nice in the sandbox, which that was the biggest thing I kept going back and forth on. Do we cut somebody now, or is it the next vote? I was willing to cut Jake at that point, especially because he wasn't truly Team Rob at that point. Honestly, he was flipping. I don't think that was good enough for Team Tyson, and that's what leads to Owe winning and me knowing that I was the 4 that Docs was holding up. He kept holding up 4, and there was no doubt I was that 4.
Well, and why you though? I mean, why do you think that they chose you?
I think they just wanted to split up Owe and I, which respect for that move, because there's nothing scarier than 2 strong people that are not going to break in this game. I feel like, I mean, especially as the numbers start getting lower and lower, 2 people means just so much more.
Yeah.
Brandon and Jess had already been broken up. I think we were the next power couple to go and just be separated. And with Owe winning, it was going to be me.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because obviously they're going to have to turn on each other sooner than later. So, and I think we're about a day away from that happening now. So just in terms of who's remaining in the game, who are you A, rooting for, and B, who do you think has the best shot of winning? So they could be the same person or it could be different people.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely not going out on a limb saying that I'm rooting for Jess. I would love to see Jess go on a run. She is just so under the rocks right now that there's almost no chance she gets out of it. But if she does, that is outstanding.
Yeah.
In terms of who I think is gonna win, I think Kimmy is just too strong right now. I think it might have even been on her resume that she sent to Tom that she overplayed her hand at 12. that may have been the case between all of her winning and her kind of being the first vocal person to flip. It's going to be a little tough for her to stay in the game without being perceived as a threat. Dox is almost the same way. I think everybody's sort of realizing that he is a little too strong. So I'm not sure if he has a chance. He has a chance if he can make it there. Now, if he can make it there, that's a big if. But really, I think it's really going to come down to who is able to flip and do it at the right time. Like you said, they're going to have to turn on each other eventually, and it's going to be all about the timing on this right now. And if Dox and or Kimmy can come out of this into the final three, I think they both have a very strong chance of winning.
Yeah. So any final thoughts, anything that we've missed or anything that you want to share or anything else?
No, I mean, I think this was just a super fun experience. I'm hoping I get the chance to do something like this again. It was good to cut my teeth this first round. I think I learned a lot on how to social strategize, play the game. I naturally love to just meet new people, get along with new people. So that part I wasn't worried about. It's the cutthroatedness and the deception and the lying that I need to sort of work on, which is weird to say, I guess. But if I ever am able to do this again, I think it's really about making those moves in the beginning. But this was super fun. You guys do a fantastic job of putting together a realistic Survivor experience online, which it's such a hard thing to do, I feel like. So major props to you guys, the whole team.
We really appreciate that. And so would you do it again if you were asked?
I would 100% do it. I think I need a little break, both for my mental state and my wife's mental state. It's good to now spend some nights together, just watching TV again together, doing the old quarantine thing. But I would 100% do this again at some point.
Nice. Well, I don't know if anyone's told you, but essentially, this is a community. We are, we've been playing for the last like 6 or so months. And so there is a great group of people who are all friends, and we all are in different chats together and play games together. So, while this particular game may have ended, it really hopefully will start a brand new just relationship with a whole bunch of cool people. Bring your wife along. It's fun to just meet new people. But Sam, we really appreciate you playing. I hope you get another chance to do it, because obviously it was a hard game. And that's another thing I just want to say to anyone watching is like, you're dealt certain hands in this game. And the fact is like, you just lost and lost and lost and lost. And it's hard to navigate that. Whereas you have this other team that hasn't really had to be as cutthroat or had to make so many decisions as you guys have. So, it really is partially the hand that you're dealt. So you did the best that you could, and you obviously made it really, really far. You're in the jury. You get to reward somebody $1,000 to win, which is super cool. I can't wait to see what you guys decide. But for everyone who's tuning in at home, we still have a whole lot of game left. We still have about a week to go. So stay tuned, and curious to see who I'll be talking to tomorrow. So Sam, thank you so much for joining us, and have a great rest of your night.
Thanks.